Assalamu alaikum, students. So today we are going to do neoplasms of the kidney, and this is going to be the last lecture on the renal system. And tomorrow, Dr. Kamal is going to start with, I think, CNS and bones and joints, and then she'll do CNS. So neoplasms of the kidney. As all of you know, there are benign tumors and malignant tumors. The benign neoplasms of the kidney are renal papillary adenoma, angiomyolipoma, oncocytoma. These are the benign neoplasms of the kidney. Renal papillary adenoma, angiomyolipoma, and oncocytoma I am going to describe one by one. Then there are malignant neoplasms. Renal cell carcinoma, which arises from the tubules, and Wilms tumor, which is mostly seen in children up to 2 to 5 years of age. Maximum age is up to 10 years. Then urothelial carcinoma of the renal pelvis. Urothelial carcinoma of the renal pelvis is similar to the urothelial carcinoma of the urinary bladder, which you have already done. Okay, so we are going to start with the benign neoplasms, and then I'm going to do malignant neoplasms. Benign renal papillary adenoma. They are small discrete adenomas which arise from the renal tubular epithelium. They are mostly found in autopsy. In 7 to 22% of autopsy cases, we see renal papillary adenoma. They do not produce any signs and symptoms that they are not diagnosed during the lifetime. On the gross appearance, these adenomas are only 0.5 centimeter in diameter, can be present in the cortex, and they can appear as pale gray circumscribed nodules. 0.5 centimeter in diameter, present mostly in the cortex, and appear as pale gray circumscribed nodules. Microscopically, they are composed of complex branching papillomator structures with fronds. These can be low-grade papillary renal carcinoma as well. If there is atypia, if we can see atypia in them, then we can grade them as low-grade papillary renal carcinoma. If the size is more than 3 centimeter, they can metastasize as well. So mostly they are benign, but if they show anaplasia, then they can be low-grade papillary renal adenocarcinoma, and they can metastasize when they are 3 centimeter, when they are malignant. Benign tumors do not metastasize. All of you know that. So this is the microscopic picture of the renal adenoma. You can see the tubules, normal tubules. But here you can see the renal adenoma. You can see these are lined by regular epithelial cells, but there are papillae formation. A small cyst is seen with papillary ingrowths, but lining epithelium do not show any features of anaplasia. Okay, anaplasia, all of you know from your third year. I will describe the anaplasia again. So this is also renal adenoma. You can see these are all papillary structure within a cyst wall. Here you can see some normal tubules. Anaplasia is when there is variation in size in the nuclei and variation in size of the cytoplasm. Nuclear cytoplasmic ratio is altered. Nuclei become hyperchromatic. Normal ratio is 1:4, but when they become 1:1 and they become hyperchromatic, these are the features of anaplasia or malignant neoplasm. Okay, so next is angiomyolipoma. I hope renal papillary adenoma is clear. Next is angiomyolipoma. This is also benign tumor consisting of vessels, smooth muscle cells, and fat originating from the perivascular epithelioid cells present within around the vessels, which are seen in patients with tuberous sclerosis characterized by the lesion of cerebral cortex that produce epilepsy and mental retardation. So tuberous sclerosis is a lesion in which, is a condition in which your patient presents with epilepsy and mental retardation. In this, angiomyolipomas are quite common in these people who suffer from tuberous sclerosis, which is a hereditary disorder. Skin abnormalities can be seen with them, and benign tumors of other sites can be seen in the tuberous sclerosis. So angiomyolipomas are mostly seen with people who are having tuberous sclerosis. Next is the oncocytoma. Oncocytoma is an epithelial neoplasm consisting of large eosinophilic cells having small round benign appearing nuclei. They arise from the intercalated cells of the renal tubules, and they are 5 to 15% of renal neoplasms. So first was the renal papillary adenoma, next is angiomyolipoma, and next is oncocytoma. So this is angiomyolipoma. This is self-explanatory. Microscopically, it consists of fat cells. This consists of myofibroblast, and then there are blood vessels present. So these factors, angio means blood vessels, myo means myofibroblasts are present, and lipoma means fat cells are present. So this is self-explanatory. These three components are seen in angiomyolipoma. Fat cells, angio means blood vessels, and myofibroblasts. These are three features. Again, you can see this is a blood vessel, this is the fat component, and this is the myofibroblasts which are present. The arrow is showing all these features, okay? This is oncocytoma. Oncocytoma, as I've told you, is composed of large eosinophilic cells which are forming groups. They are all in groups and they are normal looking. They do not show much pleomorphism. The slight variation size is seen, but they are not anaplastic looking cells. So these are oncocytomas, are benign tumors. Okay. So we had three benign tumors: papillary adenoma and papillary adenoma, angiomyolipoma, and oncocytoma. Okay. Next is the renal cell carcinoma. The abbreviation for renal cell carcinoma is RCC. RCC is the abbreviation for renal cell carcinoma. Renal cell carcinoma accounts for 85% of the renal cancers in adults. Tumors usually occur in 6 to 7 decades of life, and they show 2:1 male-female ratio. That male are more commonly affected than females. The ratio is 2:1. Epidemiologically, tobacco is the most common risk factor for the renal cell carcinoma. That is, the renal cell carcinoma is mostly seen in the cigarette smokers, pipe smokers, and cigar smokers. So it is associated with tobacco. Number two, in females, it is associated with obesity, which is also a risk for RCC, hypertension, unopposed estrogen therapy. If the person is getting unopposed estrogen, chances of getting renal cell carcinoma becomes high. Other risk factors for renal cell carcinoma is exposure to asbestos, petroleum, and heavy metal. Asbestos is also a risk factor for the formation of mesotheliomas. I hope you remember that. That is the mesothelial lining of the lungs in which these tumors can develop because of asbestos exposure. So similarly, asbestosis, petroleum, and heavy metals are also risk factors for renal cell carcinoma. Tobacco is also a very major risk factor for carcinoma of the lung. You know that. Increased risk of renal cell carcinoma is also seen in ESRD, means end-stage renal disease and cystic diseases. Okay. So end-stage renal disease and cystic diseases are also precursor, we cannot say precursor region, but they increases the risk for development of renal carcinoma. So tobacco, obesity, exposure to asbestos, petroleum, heavy metals, end-stage renal disease and cystic diseases, they are all predisposing factor for renal cell carcinoma. Most renal carcinoma are sporadic, that is, they do not have any family history of carcinoma. Unusual forms of autosomal dominant familial renal cell carcinoma occur as well. Though we say that most of them have no family history, they are sporadic. But we also know that there are certain familial syndromes which are associated with renal cell carcinoma. One of this syndrome is von Hippel-Lindau syndrome, VHL syndrome. Half to two-thirds of patients with VHL syndrome develop renal cyst and renal cell carcinoma. Okay. The other hereditary connection of renal cell carcinoma is hereditary leiomyomatosis and renal cell carcinoma syndrome. It is characterized by cutaneous and uterine leiomyomas and an aggressive type of papillary carcinoma. Okay, then hereditary papillary carcinoma, these hereditary papillary carcinoma will be multiple bilateral tumors with papillary histology. Birt-Hogg-Duke syndrome is another syndrome in which there are increased chances of development of renal cell carcinoma. In this syndrome, there are skin lesions, pulmonary lesions, and renal tumor with subtypes. Okay, so these are the few syndromes which are associated with renal cell carcinoma: VHL syndrome, hereditary leiomyomatosis, and RCC, hereditary papillary carcinoma, Birt-Hogg-Duke syndrome. Classification of renal cell carcinoma: histologically and genetically and genetics, cytogenetic and genetics. Is classifying renal cell carcinoma into clear cell carcinoma, into papillary carcinoma, into chromophobe cell carcinoma, XP11 translocation renal cell carcinoma, and collecting duct or Bellini duct carcinoma. So if we classify a renal tumor, renal cell carcinoma histologically, cytogenetically, and by genetics, there are subtypes which are clear cell papillary associated with XP11 translocations, and also chromophobe type and collecting duct or Bellini duct type of renal cell carcinoma. So I'm going to tell you one by one. In the clear cell carcinoma, it accounts is the most common type. It accounts for 70 to 80% of carcinomas. The tumors are non-papillary and they are composed of cells with clear or granular cytoplasm. Why we call them clear? Because the cytoplasm is clear on H&D staining, hematoxylin and eosine staining. The cytoplasm is clear in appearance. These are mostly sporadic cases, that is, they do not have familial basis, but they are seen both in sporadic and with other genetic abnormalities as well. As I've said to you, they are associated with VHL syndrome. Loss of sequence on short arm of chromosome 3 is seen in VHL syndrome, which harbors the von Hippel-Lindau gene. Okay, so von Hippel-Lindau syndrome is the syndrome with which renal cell carcinoma is associated, and in this case, there is loss of chromosome 3 because of the in which harbors the VHL or von Hippel-Lindau gene. So most of these renal cell carcinomas are sporadic, that is, they have no familial basis, but in case of the von Hippel-Lindau syndrome, there is loss of VHL gene on chromosome 3, which leads to renal cell carcinoma in these individuals. VHL acts as a tumor suppressor gene, and when VHL gene is inactive, HIF is hypoxia-induced factor, its level remains high, and this HIF factor collaborates with MYC gene to reprogram the cellular metabolism. When the reprogramming of cellular metabolism occurs, this will induce increased growth of the cells, leading to renal cell carcinoma. Many other genes are dysregulated as well in the renal cell carcinoma. So you have to know that clear cell carcinoma is associated with loss of VHL gene on chromosome 3. If somebody asked you what are the genetic basis, in this case, in the sporadic, it is there is no family history, but in genetic basis, there is loss of chromosome VHL gene on chromosome 3. Okay. Many other genetic dysregulation are also seen in the renal cell carcinoma. Then papillary carcinoma. Papillary carcinoma accounts for 10 to 15% of cases of renal cell carcinoma. I'm going to describe the morphology as well after we finish these genetic classification. Okay. So papillary carcinoma accounts for 10 to 15% of renal cell carcinoma in trisomy 7 and 17 and loss of Y in male patients in sporadic forms of renal carcinoma. So papillary is also both varieties, sporadic and familial. In sporadic forms, there is going to be trisomy in chromosome 7 and 17 and loss of Y chromosome. It is responsible for sporadic type of papillary carcinoma of renal cell type. Trisomy 17 in familial forms are seen. MET proto-oncogene is also mutated in sporadic form of renal cell carcinoma. Papillary carcinoma are multifocal in origin. Those papillary carcinoma, these are multifocal in origin. And in case of familial cases, there is only trisomy seen in chromosome 17. Trisomy, you mean is 3 chromosomes are seen in that chromosome 17. Instead of 2 chromatids, there are going to be 3. Then chromophobe carcinoma. 5% of renal cell carcinoma cells have pale eosinophilic cytoplasm with prominent cells. Membrane. Many microscopic losses and hypoploidy are seen as well. Okay, so in chromophobe carcinoma, 5% of renal carcinoma cells have pale eosinophilic cytoplasm with prominent cell membranes, and many chromosomal losses and hypodiploidy is seen as well in case of chromophobe renal cell carcinoma. Okay. So next is the XP11 translocation renal cell carcinoma. It is genetically distinct type of renal cell carcinoma. It is seen in young patients and is defined by translocation of TEF3 gene, which is located on chromosome XP11.2 with number of partner genes, okay, which results in overexpression of TEF3 transcriptional factor. Neoplastic cells consist of papillary architecture and clear cytoplasm. So in case of XP11 translocation renal cell carcinoma, there is going to be translocation of TEF3 gene, which is located on chromosome XP11.2. And there are other number of partner genes which are also present on them, which is also going to be translocated. And this translocation results in overexpression of TEF3 transcriptional factor, which leads to neoplastic proliferation of cells leading to XP11 translocation carcinoma, which have a papillary architecture and the cytoplasm of these carcinoma cells are clear. Next is the Bellini duct carcinoma or collecting duct carcinoma. It represents 1% of renal epithelial neoplasms, and these arise from collecting ducts in the medulla. several chromosome losses and deletions are present. Okay. So the types of renal cell carcinoma by histologically, cytogenetically, and genetics is clear cell, papillary, chromophore cell, or XP11 translocation, and collecting duct or Bellini duct carcinoma. So this is the drawing of sporadic papillary carcinoma, sporadic clear cell carcinoma. In sporadic papillary carcinoma, you see only one focus is present, and it is because of trisomy of chromosome 7, 17, 16, and loss of Y chromosome. And sporadic clear cell carcinoma, translocation are the same, and loss of VHL gene is seen. Sporadic and clear cell or hereditary type, the difference is that sporadic has only one focus of carcinoma, while in hereditary type, you can see multiple foci of carcinoma in the same kidney. Similarly, in sporadic papillary, there is only one focus, but in hereditary type, there are multiple foci present in the kidney. And hereditary type is because of trisomy 7 and mutated activated MET proto-oncogene. Okay, these oncogenes you have studied in your third year when we did neoplasia. Okay, so these are the types of renal cell carcinoma. Now we are going to see the morphology of each type of renal cell carcinoma. Morphologically, renal cell carcinoma can arise from any portion of the kidney. Most often they are present from poles. Clear cell renal carcinoma on the gross appearance, they arise from the tubular epithelium as solitary unilateral lesions. Okay. They can arise in any part of the body, but any part of the kidney, but they can be morely present on the poles of the kidney. The clear cell renal carcinoma on the gross appearance, they arise from the tubular epithelium as solitary unilateral lesion. Solitary unilateral lesion means only one solid lesion present. No, there are not multiple lesions present, especially in the sporadic variety. But in familiar variety, multiple foci of tumor can be seen. These tumors are bright yellow. Renal cell carcinoma are bright yellow on gross appearance, and they are spherical masses. They distort the renal outline. Yellow color is because of the liquid accumulation which is present in these tumor cells. These large areas of gray-white necrosis can be present, and hemorrhagic areas can be present. Marks are sharply defined and confined within the renal capsule. Earlier, they are confined within the renal capsule. Later, they can invade the capsule and can metastasize. We are going to do that later. So, microscopically, grossly, I have told you they are masses with bright yellow appearance because they have lipid accumulation in them. And there are areas, gray-white areas of necrosis and hemorrhage are present, and they have sharply defined margins, and renal capsule is intact in the beginning, okay? But later on, obviously, they are going to penetrate the capsule. Microscopically, clear cell carcinoma grow from solid to trabecular patterns, cords, or tubular patterns. Tumor cells are rounded or polygonal shape with abundant clear or granular cytoplasm which contain glycogen and lipid. I'll show you the photomicrograph. This is the clear cell carcinoma. Here you can see they are present in the groups of cells, and they have small fibrous tissue around these groups. So these are the clear cell type. They are all clear cytoplasm. You can see the nuclei. They are of different sizes and shape. Variation in size and shape of the nuclei is seen. The nuclei appear vesicular with prominent nucleoli, and cytoplasm is clear. Okay. So this is the clear cell renal cell carcinoma, clear cell variety. Okay. So I hope this is clear. This is the gross appearance. In the gross appearance, you can see there, this is the tumor present on the upper pole. This is yellow in color. Capsule is still there, but it is extending out of the renal outline, but capsule is still intact, and they are well-defined masses. This all yellowish fat is present in the hilum, okay? So, and this is a ureter which is going out, and you can see the cortex, normal cortex of the kidney as well. So, on the gross appearance, as I've told you, they are bright yellow masses, and they have gray-white areas, necrosis, they are hemorrhage when you do the cut section. And microscopically, as I've shown you, they grow in solid to trabecular pattern, cords or tubular pattern. Tumor cells are round or polygonal shape and with abundant clear cytoplasm. And this cytoplasm contains glycogen and lipids. So the stain for the glycogen is PA stain. They appear, and for the lipids is so we have the lipid stain which can stain the lipids in the red or pinkish in color. Okay. So this is the gross and microscopic appearance of the renal cell carcinoma. Next is the papillary carcinoma. The Papillary carcinoma, the tumors have papillary configuration microscopically. Interstitial foam cells are present in between these papillae that contains the foam cells in between that contain lipid as well. Stroma bodies can be present as well within the stroma. And stroma is scanty in these tumors, but it is highly vascularized. I'll show you the photomicrograph and explain you again. So if you see the papillary carcinoma, this is the papillary carcinoma. These are papillae. In between, they have a stroma which contains these foamy cells. Foamy cells are present in between them, and you can see they are lined by malignant epithelial cells, these papillae. You can see the pinkish eosinophilic cytoplasm, and there are these nuclei show a lot of pleomorphism. A lot of pleomorphism is present in these nuclei. Clearing of nucleochromatin is also seen, and clumping is seen around the nuclear membrane. So this is the papillary type of renal cell carcinoma. This is also papillary type of renal cell carcinoma. You can see these basophilic cells which contain nuclei which show pleomorphism. Not so much pleomorphism is seen in this picture as it is a low PAR as compared to this which is a high PAR view. And then you can see foamy histiocytes and foamy macrophages are present within the stroma of these papillae. Okay, so this is the papillary renal cell carcinoma. Tumors have papillary formation. Interstitial foam cells are present in the papillary core. Stroma bodies can be present. Stroma is scanty and vascularized. Stroma bodies are, calcified secretion or concretions which can be present in the tumors. These stroma bodies are also present in the tumors of the serous tumors of the ovary, serous cyst adenocarcinoma, and stroma bodies will you will also learn they will are present in the papillary thyroid carcinomas. These stroma bodies are calcified concretion or secretion. They are also present in benign prostatic hyperplasia. Any examiner can ask you what are these stroma bodies and where else you can find them. So papillary carcinoma of the ovary, papillary carcinoma, renal cell carcinoma, papillary thyroid carcinoma, and benign prostatic hyperplasia all can contain stroma bodies. And then you can also see they are present in meningiomas as well. Next is the chromophobe renal cell carcinoma. Chromophobe renal cell carcinoma is composed of pale eosinophilic cells with prominent nuclear halo arranged in a solid sheets with concentration of larger cells around the blood vessels. Okay, so if we see chromophobe cell type of carcinoma, this is chromophobe cell type of carcinoma. They are present in sheets. You can see there are pinkish eosinophilic cytoplasm, and these are the nuclei. So this is the low power view in which you cannot appreciate the nuclei. But here you can see this is also a low power view. The nuclei are seen showing pleomorphism in size and shape of the nuclear morphology, and hyperchromatic nuclei also seen at certain places. Okay, so they are composed of pale eosinophilic cells with perinuclear halo arranged in solid sheets with concentration of larger cell around the blood vessel. Next is collecting duct carcinoma is a rare variant which is composed of irregular channels lined by highly atypical epithelium with hobnail pattern. Okay, in collecting duct carcinoma we see a hobnail pattern. Sarcomatoid change in renal cell carcinoma can be seen. Sarcomatoid change means they are epithelial cells, but they are arranged in the fascicles like a sarcoma. Okay, so they will be elongated cells, and all the nuclei will show pleomorphism, but they are arranged in fascicles, and that change is known as sarcomatoid change. Sarcomatoid change is a bad prognostic feature in case of renal cell carcinoma. So morphologically, again, I've told you it is divided into clear cell, papillary carcinoma, chromophobe carcinoma, collecting duct carcinoma, and sarcomatoid chain can be seen in any one of the above tumors, and it is a bad prognostic feature. Okay, so this is the renal cell carcinoma. Again, the same pictures: clear cell type, papillary type, chromophobe type. This is clear cell type, papillary renal cell carcinoma, chromophobe type, papillary renal cell carcinoma. Okay, I hope this morphology, gross and microscopic pictures are clear to you. Next is the clinical features. These tumors, renal cell carcinoma, they present with costovertebral pain, that is pain at the back at the costovertebral angle. Palpable masses can be seen when they are large tumor, and they present with hematuria. These signs and symptoms are only seen in 10% of the people. Other tumors, but tumors can remain silent and can become very large in size, greater than 10 centimeter. And then the patient presents with fever, malaise, weakness, and weight loss. These are signs and symptoms of like a infectious process going on, like patient is getting fever, malaise, and weakness, but weight loss is quite a feature for the malignancy. So patient can only present in 10% of cases with costovertebral pain, palpable mass, and hematuria. Other patient can present with a larger masses, which presents with fever, malaise, weakness, and weight loss. These tumors can incidentally be found on the X-rays, which are done for other reasons. Okay. Abnormal hormone production by renal cell carcinoma lead to paraneoplastic syndrome. You all know what is a paraneoplastic syndrome. You have done it in your with your lung tumor as well. So the lung tumor also elaborates certain ectopic hormones. Similarly, the renal cell carcinoma also elaborates certain abnormal or ectopic hormone leading to paraneoplastic syndrome. Paraneoplastic syndrome के साथ renal cell carcinoma can present with polycythemia, hypercalcemia, hypertension, hepatic dysfunction, feminization or masculinization, Cushing syndrome, eosinophilia, leukemoid reaction, and amyloidosis. So all of you know what is polycythemia: increase in the number of red blood cells, hypercalcemia, increase in the serum calcium level, hypertension, increased blood pressure, hepatic dysfunction, that normal hepatic functions are lost, feminization, that in a male patient there are features of feminization, or in a female patient there are features of masculinization because of production of male or female hormones by these tumor. Cushing syndrome you are going to do with adrenals. Increased eosinophil count is known as eosinophilia. Leukemoid reaction is when there is WBC count more than 30,000. That is called a leukemoid reaction. And amyloidosis is deposition of pinkish hair cellular material. All of you know that. Okay. Extracellular pinkish hair cellular material is seen in amyloidosis. So this is the paraneoplastic syndrome. Metastasis. Renal cell carcinoma, they have a tendency to metastasize widely before giving signs and symptoms. Metastasis to the lungs is seen in 50% of cases, in the bones is seen in 33% of cases, and in the regional lymph node, liver, adrenal, and brain are other sites of metastasis. So, and the one feature which is seen with the renal cell carcinoma, that they can invade the renal vein, and from the renal vein they can travel in a snake-like pattern to the inferior vena cava. Okay, so this is also another type of metastasis which is seen in the renal cell carcinoma. Average 5-year survival for the patient with renal cell carcinoma is 75% with the absence of distant metastasis. The survival rate is 95%. So if they have a good 5-year survival rate, if there is no distant metastatic spread. So this is renal cell carcinoma. Next tumor, which is very important in the kidney, is Wilms tumor. Wilms tumor, the older name for the Wilms tumor is nephroblastoma. I'm telling you the older name because some examiners can ask you what is nephroblastoma. So you don't feel lost. What is it? It is Wilms tumor. The older terminology for Wilms tumor is nephroblastoma. It is, I think, not given in Robbins anymore, but previous Robbins have this terminology as well. So Wilms tumor is seen in every 10,000 children. It occurs between the ages of 2 to 5 years of age, and 90% of the people, the tumor occurs before 10 years of age. Okay, so this is a mania tumor of the younger people. Children 2 to 5 years of age, and 90% of these tumors are seen in children below 10 years of age. Both kidneys can be involved in Wilms tumor. 5 to 10% of cases, both kidneys are involved. The tumors affect simultaneously in both kidneys is known as synchronous. Synchronous means that both kidneys are affected at the same time with the tumor, or one kidney after the another kidney. This is known as metachronous. Metachronous means one kidney was affected earlier and then tumor arrived in the other kidney as well. Okay, so synchronous or metachronous. Bilateral tumors are seen 10 months earlier than the tumors which are seen in one kidney. These patients harbor a germline mutations in the one of the Wilms tumor predisposing genes. Okay, so Wilms tumors are quite connected with the other syndromes which are seen in these children with Wilms tumor. Okay, so mostly Wilms tumor is a tumor of the childhood seen in younger people less than 10 years of age. Pathogenesis and genetics. The risk of Wilms tumor is associated with 3 recognizable groups of congenital malformation with distinct chromosomal loci. Okay, the first group have Weger syndrome. In the Weger syndrome, which is characterized by Wilms tumor and iridia, genital malformations and mental retardation. Aniridia is the iris has no color in that. And there are other abnormalities which can be seen in the eye, which cataract can also develop in these children at earlier age. So first group of children who can get Wilms tumor is Weger syndrome. Risk of development of Wilms tumor is 33% in these people. Germline deletions of 11p13 chromosome is seen in these people, in these children. Wilms tumor 1, WTI1 gene deletions are seen, and deleted autosomal dominant gene for Aniridia PAX16 is seen as well. So in Weger syndrome, these children are at 33% more risk of developing Wilms tumor. There is germline deletion of 11p13 chromosomes and deletions of WTI gene and deletion of genes of Aniridia. PAX16 is also deleted in these individuals with Weger syndrome. Okay, so this is first syndrome in which Wilms tumor can be seen. Presence of WTI gene in Weger syndrome represent the first hit. Second hit is by nonsense of frame shift mutation in second WTI allele. Second hit. So person is born with one defective allele of WTI gene in Weger syndrome, and second gene mutation, allele mutation is seen as a second hit after the birth of the child, and it is because of the frame shift mutations. You have done this nonsense and frame shift mutation in your genetics, and I remember I told I gave you the lectures of genetics as well, if you remember, in your third year. Okay. Second group has Dennis-Drash syndrome. Dennis-Drash syndrome, there are germline mutation of WTI gene is present. Second hit in WTI to Wilms tumor and gonadoblastoma. Okay. Only 10% of patients with sporadic Wilms tumor show WTI mutations. Any questions, students?
No, ma'am.
Any questions? Okay, let me finish, then we can have questions. Only 10% of patients with sporadic Wilms tumor show WTI mutations. Dennis-Drash syndrome is characterized by gonadal dysgenesis and early onset of nephropathy. Diffuse glomerulosclerosis leading to renal failure is seen in Dennis-Drash syndrome. So in both Weger syndrome and Dennis-Drash syndrome, there is WTI gene mutation, okay? And in Dennis-Drash syndrome, there is also going to be diffuse glomerulosclerosis leading to renal failure. And in Weger syndrome, I told you the patient has Wilms tumor, aniridia, genital malformation, and mental retardation. Next syndrome is known as Beckwith-Weidman syndrome. In Beckwith-Weidman syndrome, WT imprinting abnormality is seen in chromosome 11p15.5. So WT2 gene, Wilms tumor 2 gene is affected in Beckwith-Weidman syndrome. Then another is insulin-like growth factor, IGF2 gene. It is expressed normally on paternal allele, but it can be silenced on maternal allele in these individuals, leading to overexpression of IGF2 seen in Wilms tumor. Okay, so when WT gene imprinting becomes abnormal, IGF2 gene becomes silent in maternal side. In paternal side, it is now present normally. So it is overexpressed, and its overexpression will lead to development of Wilms tumor. And in addition to Wilms tumor, patients with Beckwith-White syndrome are also at increased risk of development of hepatoblastoma, pancreatoblastoma, adrenocortical tumors, and rhabdomyosarcoma. So many other tumors can be seen in patients with Beckwith-White syndrome, and it is a syndrome where there is going to be organomegaly, hemihypertrophy of one side of the body is seen, and adrenal cortical cells also show increase in size. So these are the syndromes associated with Wilms tumor. There are 3 of them: Weger syndrome, Denny-Drash syndrome, and Beckwith-Weidman syndrome. This is also a chart showing all the syndrome. The first 3 are very important, 1, 2, and 4. They are very important, so I've explained them. The rest of them can also show Wilms tumor, okay? So other functional mutations can be seen in beta-catenin gene in sporadic forms of Wilms tumor in 10% cases, and nephrogenic rest are also precursor lesions for Wilms tumor, okay? So morphologically, on the gross appearance, Wilms tumor present as large, solitary, well-circumscribed masses. 10% of these tumors are bilateral or multicentric at diagnosis. Okay, so they present as large, solitary, bilateral masses, well circumscribed. Or on the cut section, we can see homogeneous tan to gray foci with foci of hemorrhage and necrosis. Cyst formation and necrosis can be seen on cut section. Microscopically, Wilms tumor is characterized by a recognizable attempt to recapitulate the different stages of nephrogenesis. इसका ये मतलब है कि जब किडनी अपनी डेवलपमेंटल स्टेज पे होता है, वही स्ट्रक्चर्स Wilms tumor दोबारा प्रोड्यूस करने की कोशिश कर रहा है. That's why I'm talking in Urdu now. Sorry for that. Wilms tumor is characterized by recognizable attempts to recapitulate different stages of nephrogenesis. Okay, triphasic combination of things are seen as them, like one is blastemal component, other is stromal component, and number three is epithelial component. Each component percentage is variable in different tumors. So blastemal component, what is this? This is sheet of small blue cells characterized by the blastemal component. Epithelial component is making the formation of abortive tubules. Stromal component are fibrocystic or myxoid. Skeletal muscle, 2 minutes more, Anna. Stromal cells are fibrocystic or myxoid. Skeletal muscle fibers are also seen in these tumor. Other elements which can be present are squamous or mucinous, epithelium, smooth muscle cells, adipose tissue, cartilage, osteoid and neurogenic tissue can be present. 5% of these tumors show an anaplasia. Anaplasia means there is going to be pleomorphism. The nuclei will appear larger. Nucleocytoplasmic ratio is absolutely reversed back. Whether it is 1:4, it becomes 1:1. The nuclei become very large, hyperchromatic, and show all signs of malignancy with irregular mitotic figures. So these tumors which exhibit anaplasia, they have poor prognosis, and they also show TP53 mutation. These tumors are resistant to chemotherapy as well. Clinical feature. The children presents with large abdominal masses which can extend into the pelvis. Patient can also present with hematuria, pain in the abdomen because of intestinal obstruction, and hypertension can also be seen in these children. Lung metastases sometimes are present at the time of diagnosis. Prognosis. Most children are cured by giving these chemotherapy agents, but those people who have got these anaplasia, they are resistant to chemotherapy. Prognosis is mostly good except for the anaplastic histology. They have adverse prognosis and loss of genetic material on chromosomes 11q, 16q, and gain of chromosome 1q have bad prognosis. These children are at increased risk of secondary primary tumors as well, as I've told you in different settings. Okay, so this is the gross appearance of a Wilms tumor. You can see the tumor formation is present on both cut section of the kidney. Here you can see the normal kidney. Next is you can see this abortive tubule formation. This is the blastemal component, and this is the stromal component. And this is again blastemal component, stromal component, and abortive tubule formation. So I'm going to upload urothelial carcinoma you have already done. Okay. So this is end of renal system. And tomorrow we are going to start with the bones and joint. Thank you.